Your bum's in the big seat, but now you have a bigger budget to manage than you've ever managed before. Knowing what to do and to get it right in the first go is not likely. But don't fret, I've got you covered.
Just lead.
You move into a new leadership role, and the likelihood that that aligns with budgeting time is slim to none, which means that you're going to inherit someone else's budget, which means you're playing a game with the rules set by someone else, and you don't know what those rules are. If you're lucky, your predecessor will be around to give you a handover that includes going through the budget. But more often than not, your predecessor has already gone on to greater things. Getting to know your budget quickly has to be a priority because spending can get out of hand if you have no idea what you're looking at. Much like how bills are passed to turn into laws, budgets are constructed in a way to make us feel stupid and frustrated. One of my past managers used to joke about the increasing number of degrees I was collecting. And yes, it is more than one, but I still used to feel so stupid and frustrated every time I looked at the budget for my role. There are a whole lot of numbers on your budget that indicate where money is allocated, how money is allocated, how money is used. Scrap all of that complicated nonsense. Your budget, every budget, is just a bunch of buckets. When you're spending money, you just need to make sure you're pulling money out of the right bucket when you do. Your first step when you get into a role with a new budget is to find the finance person in your business and start decoding the budget and putting it into your own terms. Understand what you have left when you take over the role and where money can be spent. You need to understand where each of your buckets are. These are the buckets you need to focus on. Your business as usual bucket. This is based on historicals, and that's going to keep on doing its thing. Just let it go. Your people bucket. This is how many people you're able to have on your team. You're restricted by your budget. When the going gets tough, you cannot just bring in new people because your budget won't allow it. And this is something you might want to explain to your team when they're always asking for more people because they're under the pump. You simply can't do it. You don't have the budget. Your projects budget. This is where your upgrades and speculative spend might come from. You can't just put in new installations or new office equipment willy-nilly. You've got a budget to spend. Find out how much you have left and then prioritize your issues to spend it in the right area for the rest of the financial year. Then you have a rainy day bucket, and this is when unexpected things go wrong that you can't plan for. For example, in electrical maintenance where I was, most of our failures tended to be random beyond infant mortality, which means that we needed quite a large rainy day bucket. If things don't go wrong through the year, this might be where you're able to dip your fingers to get some of those improvements you couldn't get over the line earlier in the financial year. Now that you know what is in your budget and how much you have left to spend, you'll want to get your greedy little fingers in there and spend some money to get some of these big upgrades that will really impress your new team. But pump the brakes on that one. I'm going to take a little break here just to let you know that I do have a Patreon community that you can become a part of. And that community is all about sharing my advice and coaching tips to you directly. So make sure you click that link down below and become a patron today. Enough of that, let's get back to the video. Now you need to understand how money flows out of your department, keeping those buckets in mind. At the bare minimum, you should be having monthly financial meetings with the finance person in your team. For mine, fortnightly was far better to keep an eye on where those cash flows and spends were going. If you don't have a finance person in your department, you might have to reach out to someone to find out how to generate the finance reports for your team. With the frequency of these meetings, you should be able to adjust and adapt to the way things are running. You'll see fluctuations come in and out. There'll be overspends and underspends, and any great fluctuations should be able to be explained and stopped. My final piece of advice with running a budget is about being a team player. You will have other departments around you that are peers. Your department is just one cog of the greater corporate machine that you work for. You might be underspending in some huge way, but your peer department is overspending by a lot. Your peer department reports through to the same boss, so it's up to you to work with that peer department to ensure that your boss has a budget that levels out at the end of the financial year. So while you're well under budget, that doesn't mean that you can necessarily go and just spend crazy and upgrade everything you possibly can. You have team members to look out for, and each one of us need to help the other out. In Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink describes this as cover and move, being the ultimate team player. Cover each one's loss as the other one needs to progress forward. And do it, because you'll want them to cover you when you get it wrong. Leadership is about parking your ego at the door. I've said it before and I will say it again. There is no place for your ego when it comes to managing the budget. Ask questions and seek help from those around you. Managing a big budget for the first time is a massive step in your leadership journey. You might want to formalize some further training. If so, you'll have to include that into your career plan. Click here to see how to set a career plan up.